What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel for another video. I'm going to start with a little bit of a story. So about 2 weeks ago, I was driving in my Land Rover LR3 out to our property to play some airsoft with my homies. I actually started a new airsoft channel. I'll put that linked in the description below as well as up there if you want to check that out. Anyhow, I'm driving out there in my Land Rover, which I'm sitting in right now, which might be hard to see, and to hear a thud from kind of like rear underneath the vehicle. Didn't think anything of it. Yellow suspension light comes on, suspension fault. I can't raise or lower it, and my terrain response will not work. Hang out there for the day, get back home. The next day the car is on the bump stops, which essentially means that there is somewhere in my air suspension system a problem. Yada yada yada. So I tried replacing some sensors, some relays, some electrical components like that, and wasn't having any luck. Turns out my compressor, the dryer side, ended up blowing off, like literally exploding off that side. And so I knew that was a problem. Posted on some Facebook groups, and it turns out that I probably had a different issue somewhere in the system, which would have caused the dryer side or the compressor to work too hard. And then it was kind of just like going down the line of issues. So I decided to go with a coil conversion kit. I don't want to get stranded anywhere anytime soon, and especially making this as my winter vehicle, so ski trips, you know, I could be 4 hours away in a snowstorm, and if I get a suspension fault or an air leak and I'm stuck in bump stop height, I'm gonna be screwed. So I decided to just bite the bullet and do the conversion now. So I'm gonna cut to me a few days ago and talk about, you know, some other reasons why you might want to change it, a quick tip or two, and then we'll come back and wrap up the video. I'm not going to be showing you step by step how to do this. Atlantic British has an entire video on how to do it, but I just kind of want to follow the process. Currently my Land Rover is on the bump stops. My compressor ended up blowing off the dryer side, and you know, I could probably fix my air system for relatively cheap, but with this vehicle having so many miles, I'm at like 182,000 miles, I figured I'd rather just go for reliability, fix it once, don't have to chase down any issues. I really didn't want to drive this truck anywhere really far and have a suspension fault and then not be able to get home. That was like the biggest worry. The only thing I'm losing is that adjustable height with the middle switch, but otherwise you get to keep all of your traction modes and all of that stuff. I had a 2.5-inch lift on the air suspension. The new coils are only a 2-inch lift, and here these are, as I dome myself. Here are the new coilovers. So this is the Atlantic British kit, and I went for the heavy duty set for carrying more weight, as well as the Old Man Emu springs on there, so it should be a softer ride. It also comes with this module that plugs in to get rid of all of your warning lights on your dash and all of that. So, as I said, I'm not going to show you how to do it. I'm going to install this stuff, kind of do an after, and I'm assuming it'll be pretty nice. Like I said, this vehicle has a ton of miles, so this should refresh how the suspension feels, be more reliable, and I just didn't want to have to chase down issues, because if I fix my compressor and it ended up being a leaking line or a valve block or an airbag, there's so many components that can go wrong in the air suspension on these cars. So I'm getting rid of that. Here's a look at the factory air suspension strut versus my new Atlantic British coil. And surprisingly, the new coil is actually a bit longer by about 2 or 3 inches. And if we look here at the date, this is the original air suspension strut from 2005, and 182,000 miles later on that. So definitely a bit tired looking. That looks a lot better. So I'm looking at the rear suspension of the Land Rover. I've already got the fronts done, and I learned a lot up there, as well as the other side of the rear. But I've got my air strut out of the back, and I'm going to install my wherever it is, my 2-inch lift plus coil conversion back here. And so once you get the top 3 15mm bolts off of this, and I just cut the airline up there. There wasn't like a bleed valve, so I just cut it. You can get a 15mm wrench on the front too, and I found that you could get a socket. I'm sorry, I've got a light in the hand. A socket with one of these, I don't even know, hinged heads, 15mm with a long handle on it on that rearward one. And I also sprayed everything down with like rust penetrator before. So that socket can reach the back one, which you're gonna wanna do, and you can kind of put it to this side and shimmy that around. And then in order to get the bottom of the shock to line up to the lower control arm where it bolts in, what I've done on the other side, so now I'm doing it on this side, is disconnect the sway bar end link from the lower control arm. You're gonna wanna disconnect this track bar from its mount over here on the side of the lower control arm. Let me see. So that bolts where is it? Down here somewhere. I don't know if we can see that. Anyhow, this track bar has to get unbolted. That opens up a bit more space for where your strut's gonna mount. And then what I actually did on the other side is disconnect this like camber bolt from the top of your rotor assembly, I guess you would call it, your knuckle, your rear knuckle. So I took this bolt out on the other side so I could drop the arm down. I'm gonna try to fit the new strut in here without doing that because this side seems to be sagging a bit more. Update, I got this strut bolted in. I didn't end up having to undo this camber bolt, which would technically save the alignment, but it's gonna need an alignment anyways, so it doesn't really matter. This side dropped down a bit more, I think because the other side was already installed. It was higher off the ground, so there was more room for the arm to drop down. I just gotta tighten this up, bolt my wheel on, and then the suspension is officially in. I just have to wire in the little remote to get rid of all the sensor codes. Bentley and I are about to go for a little test drive around town. I've only drove this thing once since I did the coilover conversion, so I'm gonna go cruise around, hit some dirt roads, make sure everything is still together and all bolted up, obviously, and really just kind of quick shakedown, and then give some feedback on my initial impressions of the new suspension. So far, I can say the suspension is nice and soft, no complaints here, and honestly, it's hard to tell the difference if it was on air or just on coils. But as time will tell, we'll see how it performs. Don't know how loud the wind is gonna be, but yeah, beautiful day for us today. I don't know if we can pull into here or not. We won't pull into there. But Bentley's chilling. So far, so good. All right, so I'm back from my drive. I did dirt roads, regular city driving, freeway driving, all of that, and the truck is doing just fine. Definitely needs an alignment, as you should get an alignment with any suspension adjustments or new suspension systems. So I'm gonna get that set up hopefully for next week. But even with the alignment being a bit off in the front, it still drove really, really well. And I'm actually very impressed with the ride quality with the new coil suspension in here. I just want to kind of give a look at how the truck sits now. Before, I was on the 2.5-inch Johnson rod lift on the air suspension, so it was half an inch higher in theory. I didn't measure because I was already bottomed out by the time I got back on to these. But that's how it looks with the new 2-inch coil conversion installed, looking good from up front. Yeah, so that's how it looks with the 2-inch lift on it. As I said, only time will tell with how this kit does. I had a few people comment on my Facebook post about it, saying that once the suspension kind of settles, they might rub a bit in the front. But I'm not doing anything crazy off-road right now currently, so I'm not too worried about it. I just really want to get my alignment done, and that'll help this vehicle a lot. Other than that, install was pretty straightforward. To an extent, I ended up having to drop that upper control arm bolt out of there so I could lower the lower control arm. I believe I talked about that already. If you guys want more information, you can go to Atlantic British's website. That's where I got this kit from. This is the heavy duty coilover. This is the heavy duty coil conversion kit from Atlantic British with the Old Man Emu springs and the 2-inch lift included in that, and the OBD2 reflash unit, which I haven't wired in yet direct, but you can clear all the codes and make it completely normal driving ability. You just have the dash light, so once I hardwire that, I won't have the light anymore, and that'll be all set. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it wasn't too much talking, and as I said, I'll have future videos on the ride quality. Same with the roof rack. I got that installed a few weeks ago, and you know, it's a little noisy so far, but we can get into that later. As always, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't yet. Also, consider checking out my new airsoft channel. I have that linked in the description below if you're into that kind of thing. I didn't want to blow up this channel too much with that stuff because that's just going to be strictly airsoft videos and, you know, gameplay and stuff like that. So go check that out. Hit the subscribe button here if you haven't, and I'll catch you guys next time.